Third attempt, hey? We'll give it a go.
Well done.
Okay, so I'm just here to welcome you. Thank you for your interest in seals, and just say they need all the help that they can get. And it's wonderful that there are so many people invested and interested in seals these days. So thank you. We've got a presentation from Dan Jarvis, the UK's seal welfare and something officer for British Divers Marine Life Rescue. Dan, that really isn't good enough, is it? I'm terribly sorry. He will introduce himself properly. There's myself, who is founder and director of Seal Research Trust, Sarah Greenslade, who is the founder and director of the Seal Project. And then I'm going to talk through again a different topic, best practice and recording, to give you a flavour of some of the things that you could be doing on your patch. And then Gareth Richards, founder and director of Gower Seal Group. And then we'll have an opportunity, hopefully at the end, for some Q&A. Dan, over to you. And thank you very much for speaking to us. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that you may.
Thank you. I'll just share my screen. Good afternoon, evening. What's 5 o'clock class now? Afternoon or evening? I don't know. Well, welcome anyway. Lovely to see so many of you here. I will apologise if my sound is a bit muffled. I'm on a brand new computer. This is my first Zoom on this, and it's sounding not as good as I hoped it would. So I do hope you can hear me. I'll try and speak up a little bit. But where are we? There we are. So you should be able to see that now soon. Hopefully. I can't.
Yeah,
we can.
No, it's fine. I can see it fine. I'll leave myself off mute. Sorry, Dan.
That's all right. Yeah, thank you for coming along again. My name's Dan Jarvis. I'm the Director of Welfare and Conservation at British Divers Marine Life Rescue. I've seen in the comments there's quite a few medics here, so a lot of this you're already going to know. But for those of you who aren't, this is going to be a talk about who we are at this charity here. We first formed back in 1988 by a group of divers. Anyone can get involved. I'll talk about that more later on, but you do not have to be a diver to be involved with BDMLR. A lot of what we do is actually land-based rather than in the water. And I'd start off by just telling you a little bit more about call-outs. So we operate a national hotline for members of the public to report animals of concern to, so mainly seal pups, occasionally older ones, and also the other marine mammal group, the cetaceans, whales, dolphins, and porpoises. I am just in the middle, or nearing the end of, actually, our 2021 annual report. So a little bit of preview information from that, because this graph, as you can see here, goes just up to 2020. If I were to add the 2021 data, then you'd see the axis go past 3,000. So that probably gives you an idea of the trajectory of call-outs, which kind of matches the last few years here. Call-outs are increasing around the country, largely for seals, but for a variety of different reasons, which I'll get onto in just a moment. The one thing I would caveat is the word call-outs does not mean rescues. This is just the pure number of calls that we're receiving on our hotline. Some of them, of course, are animals that do need to be rescued. Some of them are animals that might be checked and are completely fine and require no intervention at all. And of course, we do get some random false alarms, sometimes like rocks reported as stranded whales or a log reported as a seal, so on and so forth as well. If I break that data down onto a monthly basis here, again, just noting that this only goes up to 2020 at the moment. This is including all species, so the cetaceans and the seals, but over 90% of the calls, probably actually over 95% of the calls now, to be honest, that we receive are about seals. So it's very, very seal driven data that you can see on this chart. Now, as I'm sure all of you are aware, we get two seal species native to the UK, the common seal and the grey seal. I'll introduce you to them in just a moment. But the common seal gives birth to their pups during the summer, so sort of June, July, and we're still getting calls through August and September. So that's where you can see the peak in summer. And then the grey seals are giving birth from right now all the way through winter. They have a much more prolonged season. As you go around the country, it starts a little bit later, starting from southwest England and Wales, a few weeks later in Scotland, and then a few weeks later still once you get to the east coast of England. So we have this more prolonged rescue season with the grey seal pups. And as you can see, December is just awful, especially around Christmas. Again, if I was to add the 2021 data into here, then you'd see January through to May would be floating around the sort of 300, 350 mark, and December is off the chart because of Storm Arwen. Now, in the last few years, because of climate change, it's become very noticeable that we're getting more storms coming through the autumn and the winter. And if you get one of these storms, a particularly severe storm, at just the wrong time, i.e. the peak of the pupping season, when there's the most number of vulnerable, very young pups around on the coast, then it's absolutely devastating. And back in 2017, we had an event here in southwest England and Wales, and up as far as the Isle of Man, in fact. And some of the areas surveyed there lost 70% or more of their pups overnight. We had a similar event, sadly, last year, right at the end of November. That was Storm Arwen, and that affected southeast Scotland and northeast England. And I think there's a few of you, like Darren, for example, who experienced that, and it was absolutely awful. Huge amounts of pups washing up along the coast, separated from their mums. All of the rehab centres were completely full. You know, it was absolutely awful. One site alone in southeast Scotland, St Abbs Head Nature Reserve, they lost over 800 pups overnight in that storm. And these extreme events are things that we are starting to see occur more frequently, and lesser versions of them on a regular basis. I've been doing this for 20 years. This didn't used to happen, not this bad and not to this extent, but it is becoming a regular feature of our autumn and winter that we're getting these storms. And this is one of the reasons why we're getting a lot more casualties being reported to us. One of the other reasons is generally due to human activity. The human population is increasing. There's more people living at the coast. There's more people visiting the coast. There's also, in the last few years, been a lot more diversification in activities on the coast as well. So stand-up paddleboarding, kayaking, coast steering, wild swimming, all of these sorts of things have really taken off and meant there's a lot more people out there on the coast, and therefore more likely to find and report an animal that they're concerned about. But at the same time, and as I'm sure we're going to hear later on in some of the other talks, we're also getting much more problems with disturbance towards seals. So mum's been scared away from pups, dog attacks, that kind of thing in our case, but also at seal haul out sites, there's more sort of drones, kayaks coming up onto seal haul out beaches and flushing the whole loads of seals off into the water. All of that sort of stuff is happening, and it's all stuff that's detrimental to their health and also contributing to the increase in call outs that we are experiencing. So that's where we are and what we do. Now, seals, I did say to introduce you to them so you can see them at last. We have two species, as I said. The common seal gets up to about 1.8 meters long when fully grown. Males and females are about the same size when they do get there. And as I mentioned before, they give birth to their pups during the summer. Grey seals are bigger. Males can get to over 2.5 meters long. Females a bit smaller, closer to 2 meters when they're fully grown. And they do have their pups during the autumn and the winter, again, as I've already said. They do look somewhat different from each other. The common seal generally is said to have a bit more of a cat-like appearance with a rounded head and a short muzzle, whereas the grey seal has a much more elongated muzzle, and especially mature males have what is sometimes called a Roman nose, a really big, huge sort of bridged muzzle that's very pronounced. Now, they also differ a little bit in coloration. Common seals tend to be quite spotty. Grey seal males tend to be really rather quite plain with not very much pattern, whereas the females tend to be sort of a silvery grey on their back, more towards sort of a creamy grey, white, silver underneath, and much more patterned on their sides in their fur patterns. So that's a way that you might be able to tell them apart if you're seeing them in the wild. I'm sure Sue and the others are going to do a much better explanation of this stuff later on if they've got similar slides. I won't dwell on that though. Just going back to our data briefly, looking back at 2020, this is just the breakdown between two species. So you can see a little bit more clearly where those peaks occur for common seals in the red during the summer, and then in the blue for the grey seals. But why do seals need our help? So BDMLR essentially operates as a frontline service with trained volunteers who are called marine mammal medics, and they respond to these calls that we get to the hotline, and we dispatch them from head office or through our volunteer hotline coordinators to go and attend these animals to go and check them out. Now, as I said before, not all of these animals do need help, but some of them do, and we're just going to run through some of the reasons why. So like this little pup here, looks quite tadpole-like, very skinny, thin, underweight, could have been separated from mum before it should have, and just hasn't got the weight on it to survive, sadly. That could happen for all sorts of reasons. Sometimes it's inexperienced mums that separate naturally. It could be human disturbance that causes that. Also, of course, those storms I've mentioned as well. We also get older pups that can be quite exhausted, ill, and weak. We're especially seeing more of these in the aftermaths of the storms now as well. Various kinds of injuries. Again, storm damage is a really big issue, as well as dog attacks, but also bites from other seals as well, we see quite frequently. We also have various kinds of infections that go along with that. So as well as infected injuries, it could be eye problems such as ulcers, respiratory problems, that kind of thing as well. And then something that we seem to be dealing with more and more these days as well is entanglement in marine litter. So what I find quite interesting about this is different parts of the UK experience different forms of entangling material in different quantities. So for us down here in the southwest where I'm based, it's largely fishing gear. But I know, for instance, over in Norfolk especially, there's a really big problem with flying rings, frisbees, over there. So there is a campaign going on, which I think we'll hear about later, telling us a little bit more about the problems with that. And as I mentioned, we do occasionally deal with adult seals as well. More often than not, I would say it's end-of-life animals that are either just too elderly or have severe injuries or infections that they're not going to survive, that are washing up on the beaches for us to deal with. Now, what do we do in terms of our response? Well, the first and most important thing we do when we get there is to observe. We just don't go in diving in headfirst to a young pup that ought to still be with its mum. Sometimes after big tides or rough weather, pups can get displaced from the beach they're born on, and the mum sometimes does manage to follow them around to wherever it is they come up. And sometimes this is a public beach where we need to monitor them in situ, keep people back as best as we can to try and keep mum and pup together. Hopefully for as long as possible, so that the pup can be weaned naturally, because the last thing we want to do is go diving in and take the pup away from its mum, unless of course there was some really serious health problems with the pup. However, if the pup hasn't got a mum after we've done a period of observation for perhaps as long as 24 hours, or we can see that it's an older pup that's got some health problems, we will get hands-on, as you can see in the lower left photo here. So we can use a towel to restrain the animal safely. They do have teeth, they will defend themselves. That's why that's there for, and to cover their eyes as well. And it gives us good control over the animal so we can carry out a full health check. And from there, based on that health assessment, we can then decide what needs to happen in the animal's best welfare interest. So what options do we have? Well, with seals, it can be just as simple as let them go again. If there's no major health concerns for the animal, It's lively, normal temperature, well hydrated, no significant injuries or infections that we can find. We can just let it go back there on the beach. Sometimes these seals come up in places where it's not really that suitable for them to stay. It could be a really busy beach. It could be the middle of a harbour that's got lots of work going on around it, and it might not be safe for the pup to stay there. So in that case, we could relocate them, take them to a quieter place and let them go. And if they want to stay and sleep, they can. If they want to run off into the water, they can do that and find their own way somewhere safe and sensible. For the ones that do have health problems, though, they can be brought into one of the various rehabilitation centres around the UK. Now, there's about 15 seal rehabilitation centres around the country. Some of them can take lots of seals, like the RSPCA and the SSPCA. Some of them are quite small and can only handle a handful at a time. Going back to our data from earlier on, with the huge increases in the call-outs and also casualties along with that, in the last few years, it is really a struggle through much of the year to find space for seals to go to in rehab now. So this is why our assessments are so important, that we're making the right decisions, because we don't want to be bringing in seals just on the off chance that they might need help when it's taking up a pen, possibly the last pen available for hours in distance away to the next nearest centre for a pup that really desperately does need help. So this is why
3 minutes, Dan. 3 minutes.
Important. Thanks, Sue. So to help try and support some of this, we have got a handful of temporary holding centres around the country. We've got 3 of them, one in Scotland, one in North East England, and one on the east coast of England around the Yorkshire area, where we can hold seals for 2 or 3 days or so until a space comes up in one of the rehab centres, and we can book that in advance and get that pup moved in. And in the meantime, our experienced volunteers can give it all the healthcare it needs, get it vet checked to keep it going until it can get into rehab. And down in Cornwall, we actually opened a proper seal hospital just last year after having our own temporary unit for the previous decade down here. And we can now take up to 10 pups with a volunteer team of 60 medics, helping myself and Natalie Arrow, who's our vet and seal unit manager, to look after these pups potentially for as long as 3 weeks until space becomes available in our local rehab centres in the southwest. So that's RSPCA West Hatch in Somerset and the Cornish Seal Sanctuary down the other end. So these are the options that we have available to us. And of course, the animals that go into rehabilitation get looked after until they're back to full health and up to a certain weight. And then they can be released back out to the wild. Pretty much all of the centres release seal pups with a little plastic tag, like a cattle ear tag, but this one's through its rear flipper. And these are individually numbered. So it means if they're seen back out in the wild, we can get feedback on how long they're surviving for, where they're going, what they're getting up to. And we get really amazing feedback from people like Sue and Sarah and Gareth, who you're going to be hearing from today, and other areas of the country, and even other countries sometimes, which is really, really amazing. And it's starting to build up this really cool network of sightings of these post-rehab seals, which is really great information and feedback for us as rescue and rehab organisations to have. Now, I mentioned earlier on about getting involved with us. We have a training course that you can do. So I would suggest visit our website and you can go and read more about what that involves. But we basically have some lectures that you'll undergo. We have a life-size seal pup we'll teach you how to handle, and a life-size whale with whale pontoons that you'll get to play with, and also a dolphin that will show you how to lift and carry in a simple tarpaulin, and all the first aid and assessment that goes along with that. And that prepares you for the real thing, to join our team as a marine mammal medic wherever you are around the country, even in the Midlands, because we do have a team in the Midlands who still get to respond to things too. That's mostly it from me. This is just some advice on what to do if, and our hotline number if you should ever need it as well. So with seals, the control on a lead, and just be aware that they can carry diseases and they will bite as well if you get too close. So keep really far away from them. With cetaceans, it's similar things really, and we can provide all the specialist advice over the phone for dealing with them and getting our team on the way to check it out if need be.
Lovely, thanks
The
very
last
much.
thing I was going to... Oh, sorry.
Right, your
I
time's
was
up,
just going to
Dan,
say,
but carry on, it's fine.
the last thing we've got here, I'm just going to pop a link in the chat in a moment, is Freya the walrus, who you might have heard of, visited Northumberland and Shetland last winter. She was shockingly put to sleep by the Norwegian government a few weeks ago, despite advice on how to manage her situation being offered and not taken up by ourselves and other organisations as well. As a result of this, we've written an open letter from ourselves, the Seal Research Trust and Seal Rescue Ireland, asking for answers about this situation. And with that, we've also launched a petition to support it, which we really hope you guys are going to sign. We're up to just over 5,000 now, and we'd really like to hit 10,000 by the end of the month when we plan to take our letter to the Norwegian government. So if you can sign it and share it, that would be amazing. That's it from me. Thanks to everybody that we work with. And if you've got any questions, pop them in the chat. It's probably the best thing, and we'll keep on track. Thank you.
Dan, I can't thank you enough. That's really great. Thank you. And I believe Dan's correct title, because I'm not sure he said it himself, is Director of Welfare and Conservation for British Divers Marine Life Rescue. So well done, Dan. Thank you ever so much. That was really excellent. Okay, I'm going to whiz on. Please put your questions in the chat, because we will do what we can to answer them towards the end. I'm going to try and give you, Dan, can you just say whether you can see my screen?
I can, yes.
Lovely. Okay, I'm going to try and give you a quick overview of the science behind bycatch and entanglement without hopefully losing some of the welfare issues. Brief bit about Seal Research Trust. We do lots of stuff, but without our funders, we can't do any of it. So I always have to thank them. Our philosophy is that of the ecozoic, where we are sharing our seas successfully. So we're one species in a planetary ecosystem that relies on the others. We're very lucky to have Gillian Burke as our patron, but our main luck is in our amazing volunteers, who are either local or who volunteer with us all over the world by digitally volunteering. We collect seal data across the Southwest by these fantastic volunteers. And if you're interested, you can read our annual report for 2021 and see just how much those incredible volunteers achieved. In summary, if I wanted to take you through a couple of key things, they did 14 surveys every single day for every day of the year. They did 13,000 IDs. 7 seals were still around from 2000. And we had 134 unique entangled animals, which is obviously what I'm going to speak about. But as well, we had an awful lot of seriously disturbed seals, 1,487 in 282 incidents. But we managed to communicate and give seals a voice to over 13,000 people, which is a total we've already smashed this year. So I'm pretty chuffed about that. Well done, volunteers. Isn't it amazing what we can achieve together? But of course, for seals, their environment is all change, and you know an awful lot of these threats, so I'm not going to dwell on most of them. However, if we look at Cornwall Wildlife Trust Marine Strandings Network data, we can see that we are getting more and more dead seals. That could be because we have more seals to die, but it could also be because the populations are under stress. And one of our concerns in 2021 has been that we've had several adult males who were in their teens and in their prime who are dying. So we are concerned about that and starting to look into it. We try to give seals a voice with lots of statutory agencies, and for entanglement, it is the Clean Catch UK. So we give seals a voice in that forum for DEFRA. Bycatch is their definition of bycatch involves dead animals caught in live operational nets and live animals that are entangled. We have a Google Drive of these resources, and Lauren can stick the link to that in the chat if you want to find out more. So we do have by-caught animals that are reported to the Cornwall Wildlife Trust Marine Strandings Network. And in 2015 alone, DEFRA's data suggested that in the southwest of the UK, we had 310 dead by-caught seals. If we look at the science, I'm only going to give you snippets because that's only what you'll ever need, I suspect. But in 2015, these were the Sea Mammal Research Unit's data figures for bycatch. up to 580 in 2015 for the whole of the UK. And remember, 310 of those were in the southwest. But a more recent report, the 2020 Sea Mammal Research Unit report, Special Committee on Seals, suggested that there were 474, so a slight decrease in the number of bicaught animals around the UK. But shockingly, 85% of these bicaught animals were in the southwest, probably because the southwest is the first approach for lost gear from America, but also because we have a really intense inshore fishery. When we produced a paper, which I'm going to go through very quickly, in 2012, we showed that in the southwest we have the second highest rate of entanglement for any phosid seal species anywhere in the world. Why do seals get entangled? Because when they're young, they play with lost gear in the sea as a toy, and their panic response, as you can see in the top right-hand corner perhaps, is that they spin. And when you spin with a whole load of trawl net, then you get entangled up in it. The good news is, thanks to British Divers Marine Life Rescue, this animal was rescued, and you can see in 17 days that hideous wound had sealed up rather well, and he was well on the way to recovery. So the great news is that rescue works. This is my biggest regret, this particular adult female. It's unusual for an adult female to engage with a bit of lost gear. She'd just had a pup 3 weeks earlier, well, 7 weeks earlier, but she'd weaned it after 4 weeks. She'd caught this small amount of lost net around her neck. And what shocked me, because I thought she would be all right because she had no growing to do, was that within 3 short weeks that had cheese wired right the way through her skin, encircling her neck. And now this is what she looks like 2 years later. The good news is she's surviving. The bad news is the welfare is obviously not great. This is her last week with a pup. She had a pup just before she got entangled, and this is the first pup to our knowledge that she's had since. So hideous wound, but she is surviving. She got entangled in 2019, the end of January 2019, but she's still going strong, and we've managed to ID her throughout that period. She used to disappear to have her pups, but this year she's back again. The key thing from her story for us is this is a massive entanglement issue, and for some animals it's a mortality issue, like this male. So this young adult male we knew before he was entangled, and unfortunately this is him dead. This was his last live photo, and you can see how small the amount of net was that was caught around his neck and that killed him. And this is his sightings record. So from his sightings records, we know that he survived somewhere between 3 to 4 months and up to 2 years before the entanglement killed him. So it's a welfare and a mortality issue. The paper that we published, first author was Rebecca Allen at the Cornwall College, great advocate and seal photo ID. This report showed that the entanglement rates for the period we looked at had stayed pretty constant, and that we perhaps over-report them in our photo ID catalogues. 64% of the animals in the survey had severe injuries, and all but one of them were fisheries related. But the key figure that was important was 60% had trailing material, and there was a significant reduced survivorship against a controlled group. More of the trailing material in a minute. We then did another report in 2015 for World Animal Protection, and that included shed loads of surveys and 13 years worth of data. It showed that most of the entangled animals were adults in moderate or well-nourished body condition, and of the 262 animals, 92 had visible net, mostly monofilament, and 81 trailing. 208 had a severe constriction wound or both, and that the trailing material, this is the key bit, trailing material caused those deep wounds and caused a statistically significant reduction in survivorship. So an animal with no trailing material is less likely to die quickly from that entanglement. All of it, bar one, was fisheries related, and this could be a population level effect. Most of the entanglement was around their necks. Insights from photo ID, well, this affects a large number of entangled animals who can die as quickly as 89 days. The flesh and skin can actually heal over. So James Barnett does postmortems for the Cornwall Marine Pathology team, and the skin and flesh can just grow over the entangling net, so you can't see it anymore. Wounds can deteriorate quickly by movement alone. So this animal, it cut straight through even though he did no growing. It's an important welfare issue, but you can survive for many years with a hideous welfare impact. But the wounds will heal and seal quickly once the net's removed. So if we look at the most recent data from 2021, you can see that actually the entanglement rates have remained pretty constant. 2% in 2021, but 4% a year before. So I think it's pretty constant, give or take. But the maximum number of entangled animals we've seen in a single go has been hideously high. That's 18 different entangled animals in one survey, or up to 20. That's really shocking when you see 20 entangled animals in one go. We had 811 records from lots of surveys and quite a lot of times when we saw more than 10 plus entangled animals. We had 18 max in 1 year in 2021, and in 2021 we had 134 different uniquely identified animals. And if we look at the number of different photo ID'd animals each year, it kind of looks like we had a bit of a step jump in 2016, 2017, and also a step jump in 2021. I wanted to turn the sound down on these, but this is that. This is the animal that was rescued by British Divers Marine Life Rescue, but you will see in a second he was disturbed back into the water because he saw people on the cliff top, and unfortunately that meant it took 4 months to rescue him successfully, and by that time he had a hideous wound. This is, oh sorry, I'm trying to do the volume. Classic, isn't it? Oh great, here we go, let's try again. I don't think this one's going to play because I'm running out of space on my machine. So I do apologise. I'm just going to try and replay it. Here we go. Okay, so this is monofilament net as opposed to trawl net that the other seal was in. But again, this animal was rescued, and I'm delighted to say Dan managed to rescue 2 entangled seals on that particular rescue. Emerging issues. Okay, need to whiz on. Hooks and flying rings. So we had these 3 different animals hooked in one harbour in 2018 in 1 month. So this was an issue then. This particular animal, Trunk, was hooked 4 times in less than a month in the same harbour the following year. So hooking is becoming a bigger issue. Why is it becoming a bigger issue? Well, because our peak seal numbers used to be April and now they're December. And the mackerel fishery is later than it used to be. And now we have an overlap between the mackerel fishery and the maximum number of seals that never used to happen. So we've got a spatial and temporal overlap leading to more hooked seals. And this is the impact of more hooked seals. A very sad molted pup, completely wrapped up in a line of mackerel hooks, struggling to move. The animal on the right actually is also hideously entangled, but in monofilament net. And this poor molted pup that's going to struggle to teach itself to feed anyway now has a disability because it can't move its rear right flipper properly, so it can't dive properly in the water. This is not a nice issue, and it's an emerging issue. Flying rings, I'm sure you're very familiar with if you're on the East Coast. We have a whole load of resources, including letters we would love for you to write to retailers. If we had 16 people writing to one supermarket, we might find that they took them off the shelves. I'm just about to potentially show a very graphic image though, so don't look if you don't want to. This is why we're motivated to do something about this issue. This is an adult female who died as a result of being wrapped up in a flying ring. So thank you very much to Kate Wing for that. If you want to watch last year's masterclass, you will be able to hear the story of Lucky Bunting. But for those of you who listened to that and want an update, we talked through all of this in the last masterclass, and you heard that she had a pup the following year. We told you that last year, but then she had one as well on a better beach the following year, which is great. And now we're waiting for her imminently to come back. So we know that rescue does work, and hopefully she'll be back within the next couple of weeks having another pup. What can we do about this? Well, we all know that we need to reduce the amount of lost fishing gear. We need to reduce, reuse, recycle the gear that's out there. We need to redesign gear, maybe have tracers on the gear so that we can recover it better. We need to reorganize some of our fisheries. We need to replicate good projects that work. Fishing for litter is one of them. Fishermen's kisses is encouraging fishers not to cut nets and put little bits of net in the sea, and then encouraging fishers to take part in beach cleans and to do some training. We can't afford for the voices of these different entangled animals to be heard. I could put pages and pages of these animals up. It's really hideous. So it's something we all need to work on. Okay, I don't know how I've done, but we're on to Sarah Greenslade. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. Just a little bit over, sorry Sarah. So would you like to share your screen? You're going to talk to us about another issue that's an emerging, feeding seals.
Okay, see if I can get this to work.
Yes, that's working, Sarah. Well done, hun.
There we go. Okay, hi, I'm Sarah from the Seal Project, which is based in Brixham. I'm also a BDMLR medic, so I see all sides of this. I do a lot of identifications and a lot of surveying, and live in a major fishing port, so there's an awful lot going on. It's also a big fishing town, so feeding of seals is quite a thing where I am. So hopefully I can explain a little bit about it and touch on some of the things that you've just seen as best I can. So the big thing we have is people think feeding seals is cool. I suppose it's no different to feeding a lot of other wild creatures. People feed the birds, the swans, all that sort of stuff. We've all grown up taking bread to the ducks. But obviously seals are wild creatures that are coming increasingly closer to the shores, and they do learn very quickly. They are smarter creatures than we give them credit for, to be honest. And once they learn a habit, they learn it for life, and it's not good for them. And all these things that Sue has just shown you is part of what happens. They are inquisitive, they're playful, and the more they are learning to be closer to us humans, the more they're engaging in things that are in the seas closer to us. So why is it wrong to feed a seal? This is the question that if you ever asking angler around, be it a holidaymaker or a local, we get different responses, but they always ask, why? Why is it wrong? Well, because it is, they shouldn't have to give an explanation, but if everybody thinks that if they feed a seal, it will go away, then they realize it won't go away, so they keep feeding them tidbits, and then they keep coming back. Well, of course, what does a seal feed on? A seal generally feeds on a lot of fish. Fish move at speed. So if there is something moving at speed on a line that obviously the seal doesn't see, and the fish move quickly, the seal moves quicker to catch it, seal gets angling line, hooks, all the other bits attached to these angling things with sharp bits in their faces, in their mouths, across their bodies. It doesn't matter how you approach people. Some people will respond nicely. Some people aren't quite so keen to stop doing what they're doing, because the seals will take the fish anyway, is often the response they get. They won't go away. The best response I had, well, I've been doing this for 20 years or more, and the seal knows me. Even I know it's not the same seal every time. And, you know, you can only do so much sometimes. And one of the lessons we have all been learning through Seal Alliance is how to approach people, and sometimes you can't. Sometimes it's unfortunately worth standing back and watching. But this unfortunate juvenile ended up with, well, far too much embellishment on her, and it's awful to see. And I'm not even quite sure what these hooks are. I'm not kind of big on the old angling stuff. But you know, there's a few of them we see frequently, with so many bits and pieces caught on them, and as you can see, it stops them being able to then fish and feed, and it attracts other items to get caught up in them, which, you know, is scary. And I don't know quite how they feel about it. And of course, all you get from other people is, well, their blubber's quite thick, so it can't hurt. Well, we've already seen from other pictures, and we've all got the posters, don't feed the seals. These things get hooked in their faces, their eyes, their mouths, all over their bodies. They do feel pain. And this is kind of a collection of bits and pieces. These haven't come off seals, but these are all examples of what gets hooked in seals, because on the end of the lines, it's not just the sharp bits, the fluorescent glowy bits and the fake heavy fish bits, but there's weights. Some of these seals are dragging weights around, and this means that then obviously they're picking up weeds, they're carrying that along, and these things can stay in them for days, and I don't like to even think about the damage it does do to them. It's awful. And like I say, being in a fishing port, it's not necessarily the fishing, the major fishing, it's the recreational fishing and holidaymakers. I watched some woman the other day, obviously attempting angling for the first time on her little holly bobs, and how she didn't wrap it around her children, I'm not sure, but she did end up wrapped in her own line, and how it didn't hurt or she screamed, but I did laugh, unfortunately. Just because it's a sport you can try doesn't mean to say you should. So, okay, so the other questions is, well, why is it okay? Why do we have it as a problem? Why, you know, the seals, people keep saying, well, the seals are there all the time, and every year I come down, we see them. So why is it okay to then give them the fish? Well, because they don't want all the fish they catch. Well, the simple answer is really then don't catch more fish. If you've caught all you need for your tea and your family or your little day out, then don't catch any more to throw them at the seals. The seals hungry? Seals aren't hungry. They do quite well by themselves, because I've always fed the seals, because they won't go away. But that's like giving sweets to a child. If you give them sweets, they're going to come back for more. The seals are not daft. They do know, especially where we are, they do frequent the same bypass when they know the anglers are around, and so they're not going to go away. So in the end result is effectively the seals are going to do the same thing, the anglers are going to do the same thing. This problem is not going to go away very easily, and the seals are getting progressively hooked more and more frequently. Particular seals we know happens to time and time again, but we do have some amazingly good responsible anglers, and there's a couple of locals, well, there's quite a few locals that do spend days and days doing this, and not only do they spend days and days angling, but they spend days and days sat doing no angling, because they know better. And this is one of the regulars that we see, and unfortunately, the juveniles are getting wise to it, and they do sit and hang out. So this guy, another local, he just sat on his phone, and I couldn't resist it. I just said, are you playing Candy Crush then? Because you can't do a lot else. And this was in the early hours of the morning, and this seal was going to stay because she knew they know where to go. They're not daft. And this is, you know, like I say, this is why I think the creatures are not respected enough for their intelligence. But they can, and they do eat their own fish very well, and that's why they have teeth and claws. And we see this a lot. We're in a fishing port, and but the main thing is the fish aren't caught in the fishing port. The fishing port is where the boats come in and out, so the fish is there for the seals to catch, and they catch other bits obviously going over the side. But on the whole, you generally see them with live fish, and what they do to them with those teeth and claws is amazing. Which is why we all know as medics not to get close to the sharp bits. Okay, so our main survey location for the seal project is Brixham, which is a major fishing port. And so it's a kind of a controversial thing having seals here. Some people don't like them, and most people love them. And those that don't, I kind of am slowly winning round. But obviously, like I say, there's an awful lot of fishing vessels in the area, and the seals haul out here over the winter months. The seals aren't there to eat the fish because they've eaten them out at sea, and they come in to the marina area to rest. So they sleep. And if you've ever come across the resting seals, and these ones are lucky because they happen to be on a tidal maneuvering platform, then they can sleep for hours and hours and hours, and they can snore their boots off. So they definitely aren't in the area for taking over the fishermen's fish. Because in a fishing town, we do obviously hit a few snags with people not liking the seals because they eat all the fish, which they don't. They can eat up to about 6% of their body weight, which I tried to find a diagram and lost count of that one. That's like us. We don't eat masses and masses of food a day. Well, sometimes we do, but they only eat what they need to eat. They don't eat till they burst. And they have their teeth and claws for a reason, and it's to manage their own food, catch their own food, tear up their own food into bite-sized chunks, and quite often when they've had enough, play with it. So they eat a diet of fish, squid, crustaceans, sand eels. First time I ever saw a seal eating a squid, I wondered what the hell was going on, because the sea changed around it and I thought there was some sort of mass murder going on, but it was an unlucky squid on that occasion. So anyway, like I say, over the winter they come and snore and sleep and digest their food, which is a vital part of a seal's life. It's not all about eating. I think that's what a lot of people think. They should be in the water. They should be eating all the time, and actually they're lazy lumps. So, like I say, the seals are in the marina. The fishing boats are not in the marina catching fish. They're way out at sea, miles out at sea. So the two don't really play the same part together. And if anybody wants to know recently where the fish are, we've had a very strange week or two in the area where this has happened in the local seawater pool. Now, this was sprats, tons and tons of them, that got themselves caught inside the local seawater pool and basically starved themselves of oxygen. And we've had a lot of small fish, mackerel around the area. This lot were not lucky. Now, if this was a big meal source, this would be full of seals as well, surely. They'd have all gone in on the same tide, and then that would have been another call out altogether. But this surely proves that the waters around us all are doing okay at the moment. And the seals, to be fair, swim through this lot like they're not taking any notice. So seaside town has its elements. There's a lot of food thrown over the side from different boats, which is, you know, that every town gets that. But we do have a bit of an issue with some commercial and tripper boats who are known to hand feed the seals. Been a bit of an issue here, and I could go nuts on that one, but I'm not going to, because we're dealing with that one slowly. But the seals, because they learn, they are hanging around in a very different way this season. They are losing their fear of us as humans, which is worrying, because they're getting fed by the boats, they're getting fed by a few anglers, and they are also then hanging out where the crabbing lines are being held over the side, close to the shore. Of course, then visitors come down and they think it's great, so let's throw a little bit of ham, bacon, whatever to the seals. It's all adding to their bad behaviours. And my concern is that the juveniles will start hanging out in a minute, because obviously over the winter months, the previous season's juveniles will come around and they tend to head for the adults to learn some social skills. And at the moment, we've got a few adult females whose social skills involve hanging around waiting to be hand-fed. Are we going to get a bit of a queue of younger seals expecting the same treatment? I hope not, because that really wouldn't be very good.
2 minutes, Sarah.
Okay, no worries. So obviously the risks then could be bites to humans, prop strikes from boats, because if they start hanging around the wrong boats, that's an issue. And we have seen seals fighting each other. So let me have a look. And seals have teeth and claws. I think we need to remember that. None of us like to be on the sharp end of these things. And they do have the germs, as we've already been told. So we have a few seals who are very inquisitive, and this particular one here, she's been a BDMLR poster girl, and here she is heavily pregnant, thinking she can chase the angling lines. This is not going to be good for her, and I'm trying to hope she manages to go somewhere safe for her pregnancy. And we have another lady, Sammy. She again is about to be a mummy, but she is known for begging, and this has been quite prolific lately. This is her only last week. Its behaviours I've not seen so much. Unfortunately, this is one that travels well, and she is being hand-fed. And again, another adult female, potentially pregnant. This is like practically everyday behavior. We'll just skip past this one, but he was trying to be fed when we were trying to rescue him, which wasn't good. And this young lady, unfortunately, while she was being hanging around anglers and they thought it was great to keep going, even though we really didn't want them to, she did get caught in, she did take the line, and the line went quite a way, and she did do exactly what Sue said earlier. She went into panic roll and disappeared, and she must have one hell of a bit of line attached to her, and I'm only hoping she's got rid of it. So it's quite a battle we have to face with trying to educate people, and that is what we're trying to do through talking to people, events, Operation Seabird, through all we're doing through the Seal Alliance and everything. It's trying to change public perception, bad habits, and fighting the negative side of social media. So I think what we're all doing is brilliant, and I think the more we do, the more we can push it out there, the better. So thank you to everybody. This is all the guys we kind of work with, along with many others. And yeah, thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Sarah. I'm just going to put a link in the chat as well, which is a film about why we shouldn't feed seals that we made a couple of years ago that might be useful as a reference for you as well. Okay, this next section is by me again, but about best practice generally by people and seals. And I'm not hoping to give you details. What I'm hoping to do is give you an overview so that you can come back and ask for more information or go to the resources that I'm going to talk about for more information. This is just to give you a quick overview. So we are much smarter when we work together, for sure, and that, you know, we can achieve an awful lot more. So we work in networks. We're about training and upskilling people, trying to share new resources and trying to share some creativity. We give seals a voice in all these different national and international forums because people sat behind a desk who may never have seen a seal in real life need to know what it's really like out there. One of the most and newest networks is Operation Seabird, which has now been taken up and run by the police. Julian's on the call tonight. Thank you for joining us, Julian. Been taken up by the police and the MMO across all 22 coastal counties in England and Wales. This is going to be a massive support network for all of us. Operation Seabird will be shortly launching a website, and these are the kind of sections that may go on that website. Then, of course, there's the Seal Alliance with all these fabulous local groups doing grassroots stuff to try and help protect seals. Key thing that the Seal Alliance did in 2022 was to have an open letter to Boris Johnson and also a 10-minute rule bill that actually Mary has chased up again today. And we did get a response to the open letter, which was really good. And some of the things that were suggested have been actioned. If you haven't seen this report, it's a really important one by Wildlife and Countryside link talking about the benefits of seal watching for coastal economies. So this isn't just about money and environment. This is about, sorry, this isn't just about an environment and welfare issue. This is about economics as well. So it's a very useful, powerful document. We've done a creative project with 2 universities called Space for Seals. And we're about to release what we hope will be a new cartoon. But what came out of the project for me that was really useful was this manifesto for seals. What do seals need, but from their perspective, not ours? And I'm going to use this to drive all my work going forward, for sure. These are the drafts of the cartoon that might come out. We're still working on it. It's not finished. Don't like the title for a start off, but we are working on it, you know, trying to show things from a different perspective, to communicate in a new way with a new audience. We also work with lots of Southwest partners with whom we're extremely grateful, because without them we can't achieve anywhere near as much. If you would like to see the Southwest Marine Ecosystems report, it's available on one of the links that Lauren will share. And we do have a Southwest Marine Ecosystems webinar, which she can share the link for as well. We have free volunteer online training, and this isn't just for our volunteers. If you want to learn about how to survey or how to photo ID seals, you can do this training. Then you can do it on your own on your patch, or you can come and volunteer with us, or you can set up your own new seal group if there isn't one on your patch. This isn't just to get you to help us. This is to get get you to help seals wherever they be. And this is a course that you do have to pay for, that I've started running with the Field Studies Council. You know, a great big overview about seals across the UK. We've had 100 people do that 4-week course this year, which has been great. It's actually a beginner and intermediate level course with biology, ecology, ID and conservation in it. But the next level one, which will also be available next year, is the field skills to inform conservation, if you're interested in that. We have lots of disturbance information because that was our key topic for last year. If you haven't seen this People Protecting Precious Places report, it is available in our key documents, and we will share the Google Drive for this. But in summary, we looked at what seals were doing and what people were doing, and we looked at the overlap. For 2013 to 2021, we discovered that actually disturbance is an issue right the way around the southwest, and on average over 1,000 seals were seriously disturbed every year, and there was a statistically significant increase, but only in the summer. What's interesting is most seals get disturbed in the summer when there are more people. Take that back. Most disturbance incidents happen in the summer when there are more people about, but more seals get disturbed in the winter when there are more seals about. And as I said, when we looked at the trends over the years, the only statistically significant increase was in the summer. So we now know where we need to target our efforts. Between 2019 and 2021, where we did some really systematic surveys, there wasn't a big increase in disturbance. And we're just hoping that's because of all the huge amount of mitigation work we did. But what I really liked about the rest of the report was it didn't just point the finger at one user group. It showed we all have a responsibility. So when we looked at all disturbance, from looking at you to being disturbed into the sea, we had trip boats, ribs and air-based causes caused the most disturbance. But when we just looked at the really serious disturbance, it was paddle sports and swimmers. The reason being, boats with engines can be heard from miles away and therefore can be predictable for a seal, whereas something that's a paddle sport can be very close to a seal before it even realises it's there, and then they panic and they will leg it into the sea. If you want to read the report, it's available. But the good news was 2 sites stayed pretty much the same. The bad news is even their seals were disturbed once every 24, 22, 26 minutes. But we had 1 site with significant improvement, and that's where we've done most of our work. And we had 1 site that was significantly worse, and that's because it's the most accessible. But again, we know where we need to target our resources. We had several recommendations, including a voluntary national marine code of conduct. That's coming. DEFRA are hoping to release that in February 2023. It will be called the National Marine and Wildlife Coastal Code, like the Countryside Code. We're hoping disturbance for seals will be made illegal in 2023 as well, but we all need to win hearts and minds and keep up the awareness raising campaigns. Operator engagement. This year, I've taken it upon myself to write to lots of operators, and I have sent them 4 letters this year. They're all there if you want to have a look at them, but I would suggest that it's worth positively engaging with local operators. And then if you wish to start recording disturbance, that's the best way for people to hear your message, is if you can provide some evidence. This is our definition of disturbance and how we record it. And I had a couple of examples of disturbance. This was paddle sports. Actually, this was the least level of disturbance because we just have alert seals. What the seals should be doing at this site, as Sarah has suggested, is sleeping. And when they're sleeping, they're digesting their food that they caught further offshore. This next one, on the other hand, if I can get rid of the sound again, this next one was a rib, and this is a pregnant female who can't afford to bounce off her pup as she goes in the water, so she rolls into the sea. That was a good move on her part, but rather worrying that a pregnant female's being disturbed. Bunch of jet skis arrive and a shed load of seals get disturbed into the sea. That was the first bit of their interaction with the seals. We had a bit of a stampede over the rocks. The next one, they got a little bit closer. I was shocked at how close they thought it was okay to be. If this is not okay, ideally, we should all be 100 meters away from a hauled out seal, and then we should leave as quietly as we arrive. which clearly didn't happen in this particular case either. So there's some examples. On this particular day, we were able to produce this data from that incident, and as a result of that, we get some really good data. This is the record data that we use to record seal disturbance. There were 3 incidents, paddle sports, with seals looking around, level 1, and seals rushing in towards the sea. There were 19 seals affected then. The second incident, we had looking round, rushing to the sea and entering the sea. We had 23 seals affected by that. And then in the third incident with the jet skis, we had shed loads of seals. 3 activities in 26 minutes. But this is a brand new one that I took this week. And this is much more serious. This is a juvenile seal with no blubber layers, being scared into the sea and taking a bit of a leg it. If you can imagine, without having any blubber, you know, I've got a fair amount of blubber. If I did that in a wetsuit, it would hurt, and it hurts them too. And I imagine that animal probably had some broken bones. Okay, we've also started recording activity, and we've matched it to best practice. So here is the best practice at this site. We've listed it out for ourselves, and we just tally if a boat doesn't do this, or if an operator doesn't do this, or if a recreational activity doesn't do this. And we've got 5 different activities can be recorded on one sheet. What do we use that for? Well, we write operators letters from the Cornwall Marine and Coastal Code group, but we could do it just as our organisation, and we say, this is what you did well, this is what you need to do better, and this is stuff we didn't record. So we're able to send some specific activity letters to different operators. This is what you did, this is what you need to do better, and so on. It's a really much more positive way to engage operators. We're very happy to give you a blank database. If you want to start recording your data, you can do it in an Excel spreadsheet. But if you want an Access database that's had quite a lot of thought go into it, particularly by Jeff Loveridge, who is our volunteer who designed it and who manages it, we are happy to share a blank database for you to start filling in. My advice is just start somewhere. I didn't know what I was doing with Access when I started doing this, but now we've got really important data. I would suggest as well that it's really important for us to start doing time lapses. So the Nikon P9900 cameras have a 25-minute landscape time lapse as one of their scenes options. And this was 103 minutes, 13 activities, 1 every 9 minutes. This is the same site look. We'd look at the activity around. None of them are far enough away, and there's far too much activity, and there's lots of disturbance. And then this is a water site. So this is a completely different site, but you can see how visited and busy this can be. When you're trying to talk to a statutory agency about how busy things are, they understand much better when you've got something to show them like this. And please don't allow your expectations to be eroded by what you see. This is not good enough. This is too close. The wildlife safe minimum approach distance is 100 meters, and we all need to stick to that. Okay, one of our volunteers, Jeff, has also been doing some fixed camera monitoring to record people and disturbance, which has been very interesting. So that's also an option for you. But our main thing that we've been trying to do in 2022 is empower volunteers. And we've set up this Facebook workplace group with lots of different groups of people who are doing different aspects of work for us. One of the most important ones has been the conservation team, and it's where a group of volunteers can have access to all the resources that they need, for example, on flying rings, and then they can share what they've done, they can share the letter that they've sent, so another volunteer can use the letter and edit it for themselves. We can share the successes as well, and it's been hugely successful, empowering volunteers to take action. We can't do it all ourselves from here, but if we give people the tone, the words and the approach and the resources, they can do it effectively themselves. Brand new resource for you for pupping season if you want it, that can be edited to your needs. You just need to tell me how. Is this pupping one? Please don't pass this point as a vulnerable mum and pup. This is not law. This is trying to appeal to hearts and minds. Or likewise, this more formal one that Natural England put up for us. If you want some stickers, look, we've got loads of stickers. We can get more done. These are for boats, for paddle sports, or for cars. If you want those, we can send them to you. And I'm delighted that Gareth has had 1,000 of those for Gower Seal Group, and Sarah has had 1,000 for the Seal Project, and we have some for Cornwall. We can put your logo on it if you want. And then I love this graphic that was created by Behaviour Change Cornwall and Lou Marine Conservation Group. It's a really good summary of best practice. It's great for social media. And the seals that inspire us. Okay, need to rush through. This is a seal I met in 2000. He's called Chairlift, and I love him to bits, and we still see him. Look, pretty constant ID pattern all the way through the year, as opposed to Hook, who I've also known since 2000, who changes his visit pattern substantially in 2013, because I think he's an active beach master, whereas Chairlift is a non-breeding male, like most males in Seal Society. Sorry, I should have warned you about a gory photo, but photo ID is really important in helping us with mortality and natural scavenging. We photo identified this animal, and it's very tempting to think something very mysterious and sinister has gone on with this animal, when in actual fact it's just natural scavenging on a beach. Dan has rescued, and along with British Divers Marine Life Rescue, lots of unresponsive adults that have either died after they've been attended or have had to be euthanized. This is a bit of a worrying issue, but we can build up their story for these dead animals and even track her wound progression to see how her wound developed over time. And then Dan also mentioned some animals that move a long way. One of our volunteers, Andrea, was swimming in Mounts Bay and saw this seal go past with 75 in her fur. Died with probably hydrogen peroxide. It won't hurt her because when she molts her, the 75 will disappear. But we then discovered, to cut a long story short, she'd only been rescued near Biarritz and released in Biarritz in southern France, and then swum 800 kilometres in less than 28 days to Mounts Bay. How cool is that? So if you want to find out more, we fund all our work through an online shop and a Wild Seal supporter scheme where you can adopt a seal. You get 4 quarterly updates during the year, real seal stories in real time. It's a great way to keep in touch. Okay, I can't believe I managed to whistle through that in 15 minutes. Gareth Richards, over to you and all the fantastic engagement work that you've been doing, Gareth, in Southwest Wales for us. You are now able to share your screen.
Like this. Can you see that too?
I can see it. Yes, Gareth.
Absolutely. Just hang on a sec. This is something.
That's fine, Gareth. Right. Well done.
Got it. Right. It'll actually take you probably about 10 seconds to realise I don't have a Cornish accent. So it's welcome from South Wales. And it's fantastic to see the number of people from across the UK who are on this particular masterclass. So thanks very much, Sue, for arranging this. It means a lot. Sarah mentioned earlier on about some seals snoring, but I've just got to... Has that changed, Sue?
No, it's not changed, Gareth.
Oh. Right.
What I suggest is you stop sharing and try sharing again.
Right, let me just try sharing again. Sorry.
It wouldn't be right if we had a session with no technical hitches. We've had a few with recording and now we've got another one.
Yeah, it looks like, isn't it?
Would you like me to share?
Have
another go. Have another go.
Has that gone?
I can't, you're not sharing your screen at the minute, Gareth.
Right.
Don't worry. Everyone can do with a breather and a cup of tea anyway.
Right. Let's try one more time, if not, Sue. Good.
Yeah, try again. Well done.
Oh, well done. We've got there. As I was saying, Sarah mentioned earlier on about the seals snoring. Well, I've just got to give you a little bit of a pre-warn. I've got my 3 little dogs behind me, actually, and they're all in their baskets, and they're all snoring. So I don't know if you can hear them, but I certainly can, but we'll sort of move on anyway. I'd just like to thank the Gower Society, who've been incredibly supportive of us since we started just 14 months ago. But I just want to pose a question first of all. You know, we've heard Sue and Sarah and Dan talking about a very small proportion of what they actually sort of do. But the question I got to ask is, why do we do things? What is the purpose? Why do we actually do it? And it's one thing about Sarah, Dan and myself, you know, we do have a sort of common purpose. And the common purpose ultimately is to reduce disturbance and to certainly look after our seals that visit us as well. So, you know, purpose itself is something which is far bigger than yourself. And for me, this particular picture tells it all. Because I watched this beautiful girl just resting undisturbed, and she was absolutely gone completely. And she was, in fact, she's on the bottom left-hand side there, and she was sharing that piece of sort of a rock locally with some of her friends. And I always believe that if you've got a good sense of purpose and you don't lose your why, or why you're actually doing something, then you certainly won't lose your way. So it's something that I've been brought up to believe is you lose your why, you lose your way. And it's one thing that I've been very thankful for, actually, and Sue mentioned it earlier on, is that, you know, I am a very, very small sort of cog in a much bigger machine, and the Seal Alliance really keeps us all together. And it's absolutely fantastic to have these monthly meetings that we do have. But in between the monthly meetings as well is that we do meet up with other groups as well. So we have sort of conversations, so we're engaging with one another as well. And a lot of these groups here have been running for many, many years, and they're far more experienced than myself. But collectively, we have so many different sort of skills that we share, the knowledge that we share. And there's a couple of incidents. One was, Dan mentioned it earlier on, about Freya in Norway, where there was a letter created for the Norwegian authorities, really expressing our views of what actually happened to Freya. Plus, as well, there's just one other incident I won't talk about, but basically, you know, we've all got together and pooled our resources, our knowledge, and our skills together to make things happen. And you know, to that end, we want to, as Sue said earlier, give our seals a voice. And, you know, we have that ability and certainly the platform to do that. And it's most important that we do give them a voice. But of course, it's about how we make that actually happen. And like a lot of our sort of groups that we run, people only see the actors or the stage, and there's a lot goes on behind the scenes to make this happen. And certainly for myself locally is that I am absolutely blessed with having SEAL ambassadors. And I can't believe, actually, Sue, that 12 months has passed since you actually gave the first masterclass. And that was a prerequisite for our SEAL ambassadors to be learning the facts about SEALs. But locally as well, we've given inputs from the RSPCA about rehabilitation, from the BDMLR. You know, I've spoken about surveying SEALs and photographic survey or whatever. So really, the SEAL ambassadors, as far as I'm concerned, are the glue that actually holds the our Gower SEAL group together. And it's absolutely fantastic to hear them talking with authority. And sometimes I hold myself back. I don't get involved. I just listen. And, you know, I'm so pleased, and I'm certainly so proud to hear the way that our SEAL ambassadors are engaging with the public. But before we start on events, you know, we do have a little bit of a briefing, a little chat, I suppose, just to remind ourselves what the key messages are for that particular event. For example, we supported the local National Trust, who ran an event on dogs and the wildlife code as well. So we could actually change our sort of key messages to bring it round to, keeping the dogs in the lead with during the pupping season and at other times as well. But it's very important that I believe that you know your teams. And this is one thing that I'm quite keen on, is knowing the skills that's within the group itself. And I think that, square pegs and round holes spring to mind, really, because, there's not a lot of people who'd feel quite comfortable to stand up in front of 50 plus people and speak for an hour about seals. However, they are absolutely brilliant on a one-to-one engagement at events. So we want to put something which they feel confident about doing, because at the end of the day, it's about team effort. And it just so happens, actually, that I did a talk this morning, and I'm just going to go to my camera here a sec. I did a talk this morning for a local Probus group, which is a group of retired professional and business people. And it was in a local rugby club. And I noticed when I was waiting to do the talk, there was a plaque up in the wall, which I took a photograph of. And the plaque was dedicated to one particular gentleman who had died. But it said, and I'll just read it out to you, it said, dedicated to all past and present members who have built the club and grounds to what they are today. But it's the next two lines which resonated with me. And it went on to say, whether you picked up a saw, a trowel, a pen or rugby ball, we thank you. And that, to me, really is what it's all about. It's all about team effort. So no matter what your involvement is, what your skill set is about working together as a team itself. I just threw this photograph in because this isn't the new sort of Welsh costume. We really are truly international. This was in a local sort of carnival when we were absolutely blessed with having some Ukrainian refugees. And it was quite surreal, actually, that just a couple of weeks before, these people were actually living in war-torn and bombed sort of villages and towns in a war zone. But they were lucky to escape, and it was absolutely fantastic to sort of welcome them. And although we couldn't, there was obviously a language barrier, we couldn't engage with them as we would normally. But even through the use of sort of photographs and pointing and much humming and hawing or whatever, they actually got the message there. But one of the things that I actually sort of found is that, and we've done it locally, is that our banners are quite sort of simple. We don't have any sort of hard facts or statistics on them. And there's nothing wrong with having that. But what we actually did is that we did banners that posed questions. So, because we wanted to engage with people, so we wanted to draw people in. And many people have come up to us and said, I'm intrigued. What does a seal actually do just before it dives? Well, that's where the engagement has commenced, because what we are doing is that we're drawing people in. So instead of people just reading the facts and figures or whatever, we've actually posed the questions. And there were a number of questions there, like, how does a seal keep itself warm? Do they travel? Come and speak to us. So that's what it actually comes down to. And in fact, the last event I actually did, I met these two, and this little boy here was absolutely incredible. He really was. And, it's all about making people feel special. And we've heard a lot of that in the last week since Her Majesty the Queen died, where a lot of people have actually sort of said that, she made you feel special. She made you feel as if you were the only person in the room and outside. Because I honestly believe that it's far more important to be interested than interesting. And by giving people sort of time as well. And this little boy, who was absolutely brilliant, and when I put the photographs up on the Facebook, either that night or the night before, I noticed, and I'm just going to read this out to you, his mum actually put this post on, and she wrote, "We had a fab afternoon learning about seals with you. My son really enjoyed things so much. Thanks so much for all you do. He was so happy to learn from you, and he feels excited now to look out for seals around our beautiful coasts. Best of luck with the new season, and thank you again." I mean, there's 3 words there which really sort of stand out for me, and that is enjoyed, happy, and excited. This little boy really enjoyed, he was happy and excited there. So again, it's about engaging. So it doesn't matter what the age is. This lad here, I don't know, might have been about 8 years of age. The eldest, or the oldest I've had in an audience so far is 103 years of age, which I actually had in a talk I did last week, I think it was. But we are, sorry, I'll just go back there. We are very pleased with our schools program. And one thing that we actually do is that we have a junior and mini SEAL ambassador program. So we go into the schools there, and part and parcel of that, we make it fun, basically, for the children. And there's one thing that I've been really impressed about is, oh my goodness, you know, the children are so far ahead than adults when it comes to environmental issues. And that's great testament to the teachers that are really working very, very hard to keep these young children on track. But one thing that we actually do as part of the program is that we have a quiz. And again, we make it fun. And if they pass the quiz, then they get a certificate, they get some badges, and they get leaflets and a few other little things. But I'll leave you into a little secret: they all pass the quiz. But there's one thing that I love seeing is their little faces when this slide comes up and saying, you know, well done, you know, to you. You're all now mini SEAL ambassadors. And it's important for us actually to get that across. Like I remember the last time that I went into a school, there was a little boy actually, as they were all coming out of the school hall, he just broke ranks and he came up to me and he said, "Thank you very much. I really enjoyed that." And he went out and shook my hand. Well, I tell you what, honest to God, I nearly choked. It was absolutely fantastic. You've actually got to this young lad there. So it's so important to engage with your audience, and it can be a challenge. There's no doubt about it. It can be a challenge there. But these 3, I've certainly got these 3 engaged. I just want to point out that I also look after SEAL pups for the RSPCA as well as a volunteer.
3 minutes, Gareth.
Okay. But so this was one photograph taken, and the reason they were engaged with me is because I had a bucket of mackerel in my hands. So when it comes down to it, you know, it's about giving an audience and having a connection with them and giving them something that they want. So what I try and do is that before I give a talk, I will try my best to find out about that particular group or the audience and try and connect it in with a link of what we actually do as well. And we try and keep it in so that it's quite relevant and it's in context. And I do believe as well in telling people exactly how it is, because I can sit here for an hour and show you all the photographs, these wonderful photographs of these seals and pretty little cute seal pups. But the reality is quite the opposite, as we've already heard from Dan and Sarah as well. So what I try and do is to make sure that they get the truth about it. But it's about involving the audience and trying to leave them wanting to help you. And I can remember there was one talk, in fact, it was last August, and it was in a small local village hall. There were 52 people there, actually, and I noticed about 2 or 3 rows in, there was a mum and her daughter. The daughter must have been about 40 years of age. And the mum was obviously a lot older. And when I was doing the talk, the mum was really attentive, really listening to what was happening, really engaged. But the daughter was looking all over the place and she was playing on her iPad, which I thought was a little bit disconcerting. But at the end of the day, you win some, you lose some. You know, she wasn't interested. But after the talk, she actually came up to me and she said, "I really enjoyed your talk. This is what I've done." And she presented me with this. She was listening. She'd been doing this, and it was live, as you see in the bottom right-hand side, drawn live by Catfish Creative, and that was her company. And as I was talking, she was actually drawing all these wonderful sort of images there. Wow, that was, you know, that really sort of blew me away when I actually saw that. But I would say as well is to, look at every experience as an opportunity. I mean, I gave an opportunity to South Wales Police to give an input about disturbance to the wildlife crime officers who were on a 2-day course. That actually resulted in some fantastic opportunities, especially with Operation Seabird, which Sue has explained already. And we work extremely closely with South Wales Police and the National Crime Watch institutions, you can see there. But just going back to involving your audience is one thing that I like to do, is to get people to want to help. And when I go to the RSPCA West Hatch, I always put out an appeal for fairy liquid and towels, because one thing that we do in the pens there is to use a lot of fairy liquid just to clean the pens and sort of minimize infection. When I go up in my van, I take hundreds of bottles because people want to help and want to be part of it there. And again, chance conversations. I had a chance conversation with Martin on the left and Fiona here, who were the site managers of a local caravan club site. Within a couple of days, I was doing my first nighttime film show to their campers there. And although it rained about 15 minutes in, they just put their umbrellas up and sat there with all their umbrellas up. I put a cover over the electrical stuff. I mean, in true British fashion, we just carried on. And we just loved it. They just absolutely loved it there. And just to mention really, and I've just put a few on this particular slide. You know, at the end of the day, we would be struggling if we didn't have the help and support from these people in the organisations that we've actually got there. Because it's about teamwork, it's about working together, it's about engaging with people as well. Because I honestly believe by working together, we can certainly live in harmony, exactly like these three are on the picture. So I think that's it. Am I just over?
It's fine, Gareth. It was inspiring enough for you to earn a little bit of extra time, and actually you weren't very over either, but thank you very much. That was really great. Okay, well, I hope that there's been lots of stuff of interest there. Could you stop sharing your screen, Gareth? I don't know if you are or not.
I have.
Okay, I'm just going to share mine and finish off. But basically, this is your opportunity to ask questions, which you can put into the chat. Can you see my screen, Dan?
Yeah.
Gareth can see it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
yeah.
cool. Lauren has put these links in the chat for you. Media, which is photos and videos of grey seals, photos and videos of grey seal issues, and photos of grey seal pups that you can use copyright free for anything that you wish to use. None of our photos and videos have seals looking at a camera because the seals may have been disturbed in the taking. So we're role modeling best practice, and none of the footage and videos and stills have lots of seals in them. And they don't have beach footprints or cliff footprints. They are site vague. We don't give away sites either, but those are resources you can use. We have entanglement resources, shed loads of public resources, and we've got flying rings resources if you want to start writing to retailers or schools, whoever you want to start writing to. The draft letters are already there and the resources that you need to send them. And I just really wanted to finish off the formal input by saying, how can you help? Okay, so for me, there's 1, 1, 2, 2s, 4 Rs, 4 Ls and 4 Ps. The main 1, 1 is to watch from a distance. Use your binoculars, use your massive zoom lens. I've got a 3000mm zoom lens on a Nikon P1000, which is about £1,000. The Nikon P900s are 450, 550 quid. They have massive zoom lenses. So watch from a distance, please. 2, nevers. Never feed. Never feed. It leads to a lifetime of changed behaviour, as we have heard today. We do have signs. We could get them edited for you if you have an issue in your local harbour. And never put a seal pup back in the sea. Never put any seal back in the sea. If it's in trouble, it can't be helped if it's back in the sea, and then we've doomed it to death. So the best thing you can do is call British Divers Marine Life Rescue, 01825 765546. Dan's probably shaking his head wishing I'd never said that. And then 4 R's, 4 L's and 4 P's. Okay, so plastics, we all need to reduce our single-use plastic wherever we can, reuse plastic wherever we can, recycle as much of it as we can. I know I'm preaching to the converted, and redesign some of the stuff that we make so it's no longer plastic, basically. A lot of that is happening with producers, but we need to be thinking about that at home as well. We need to, if we can, if we eat fish, and I have to say that I generally don't because I leave it in the sea for the marine creatures, but if you eat fish, then local, low-rated good seafood guide fish that's got minimal impact on the environment, line-caught fish because that has the least bycatch, and lobster pot shellfish because that has the least impacts on the environment as well. And then think about your toilet. Lovely way to end, hey? Pee, poo, paper and plant-based cleaning products down the toilet. So I use BioD, but you can use other products. There's loads of them out there now that aren't going to damage the environment when they get flushed into the sea, particularly in a severe weather event, because the sewage system can't cope. Please make a pledge. There are lots of things that we can all do in our work, rest and play to help seals, whether you're at home or in a cafe. Take a personal action pledge, make one for next week. What seal-friendly change are you going to make next week that's going to help seals? You only need to do one every now and again, add it to your list. And before you know it, you've revolutionized how you behave at home, work and play. I've just put a thank you in the chat. Honestly, it's rejuvenating, inspiring to have people listening to what we say. There's one lady who I've private messaged to say thank you so much, because I can see you taking notes and I can see you focused, and it's really motivating for somebody like myself to get that kind of response from people. Right, over to questions. We've got I don't know how long we've got about 10 minutes, I should think. I think we said we would, I don't know what time we said we'd finish, but never mind. 40, so we got a few minutes anyway. I'm sure you won't mind. Questions? Do we have any questions in the chat? What was the course you mentioned? Was that me or Dan? Bex, you can unmute. Oh, that's probably putting her on the spot a little bit. There are free training courses from us, volunteer training courses, and I run a Field Studies Council course called Discovering UK Seals. But Dan also runs the British Divers Marine Life Rescue Medic, Marine Mammal Medic training. So there are 3 courses you could pledge to do in the next 12 months, and that would help seals lots. Cetacean Stranding Investigation Programme. Dan's put a comment in about that. Oh, me. Thank you, Bex. Yes, I've told you about those. If you want to email me, I'll put my email address in the... Oh, Lauren can do that. seals@cornwallsealgroup.co.uk, and we'll send you the links. That's probably the best thing to do, Bex. We're always on the lookout for people who can help us with processing. Yes, Lauren, we're always looking out for help. People who've got digital skills, IT skills, who can help us process our photos. So if you can't get out and survey, you can always process our survey photos and help us so that we can spend more time surveying. That's great. Donna, that's a very kind comment. Thank you very much. Can you find the course on the website? Very good question. We need to update our website, Deborah. It'll happen in the next 12 months. But Lauren has already put our email address in the chat. Just email us and we will send you the link to our training course. Well done for all those people who are medics for British Divers Marine Life Rescue. Gosh, I don't know what we'd do without you. You really are inspiring and fantastic. Thank you. I'm one too, obviously. You live in Nottingham. How can I be a part of the training mentioned you will look into? You can definitely. We have people in Solihull and we have people in Edgbaston who do volunteer training for us. They process photos that we send them. You just need to do that online training with us. That's absolutely fine. No joke, best most complete seal talk I've attended. Oh, you lovely lady. Thank you very much, Mary. Yeah. Remote volunteer training, the link's there. She's actually put it on there. Excellent. Good. Any other questions? Have I missed any questions? Anyone who's on the panel can chip in. I can't see any more questions. Anybody else got one? You can always unmute. We're not adverse to hearing voices. that's always very welcome. And all I can see is the chat at the minute, which is not helping me.
Can I just chuck in that obviously I don't quite know when it's going to happen, but the SEAL Project and British Divers Marine Life Rescue will be on Country File at some point over the next few weeks. It was meant to be, I think, next weekend, but obviously things have changed. So yeah, so keep an eye out for that, guys.
Yeah, keep your eyes peeled for sure. Excellent. Okay, and I didn't mean to do that. I meant to go to the start. I was just going to remind you that the SEAL Masterclass, which is all the SEAL Alliance groups who were able, presenting short bits, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, about what they've been up to in the last 12 months. If you think this was inspiring, you'll find, blimey, they'll blow your brains off. Or even your socks, I'm not quite sure which. So yeah, the SEAL Masterclass, this is that, the SEAL Alliance SharePoint session, 17th of November at 5 o'clock. So it's a Thursday again, 5 o'clock, and we will aim to record it as well. We'll aim to share this recording. We just weren't sure whether it would work, and it nearly didn't. So it's a good job we didn't tell everyone they could just watch the recording. Okay, any more questions? Well, in that case, if you wish to stay on and talk in a smaller audience, we will stay on for another 5 minutes. But in that case, yeah, good question, Peter. Will you send out the invite emails for the SharePoint session? We will do it how we did this one, which is get all the SEAL Alliance groups to share with their respective groups the link for it, so you'll get it via us for sure. We'll also try and do some social media posts as well to get it out there a little bit, because, you know, you all need more volunteers. We all need more people. We've grown beyond belief in the last 12 months, but we still need to keep growing, because currently I still feel we're working in a bubble of converted people, and we need to get out, burst that bubble and get beyond it and start getting onto a mass audience. But, you know, one step at a time. Where can you get your wonderful teachers? Did you notice my costume change in between my talks? Okay, I had a white one at the end, and I started with a blue one. Look, you can get those on our online shop. If you go up to products up at the top of our shop, and our shop is, Lauren will shove it in the chat, www.sealresearchtrust.com. They are ethical organic t-shirts, and they are printed to order, so there's no waste, and they're beautiful. I order the men's ones though, because the women's ones have got a little slit at the side, which you might like, but you might not like. So, but they're good. Slightly on the slight small size, so order bigger rather than smaller. But yeah, main shop's there. Thank you very much, Lauren. Excellent. Okay, so bye-bye to everyone. Bye from all the presenters. Gareth, I can't thank you enough. Sarah, you were brilliant. Dan, just great as ever. Thank you so much. What a great team effort. And Lauren, thank you very much for doing the supportive admin. It's very much appreciated. And thank you to all those other SEAL Alliance members, without whom we're nothing, really. You know, together we are strong. Gareth said it all. It's all about teamwork. So thank you very much. Yeah, leave your comments in the chat if you wish, because it'll make us smile and make us feel better. So that's great. And if you want to stay on, stay on. We'll be here for another 5 minutes. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Sue. Bye now.
Thank you so much. Marvellous.
Very welcome. Very welcome. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Well, I didn't think we'd finish on time, guys, so that's pretty good. If you're still, Sue Austin, did you get my message?
No, I haven't seen it yet. I'm sorry.
No,
because I keep looking at my watch, because there's a meeting, there's a local meeting at the village hall, but this is so interesting that that's gone out.
Bless you. Sue, what I wrote was thank you so much, but by sheer fluke, you were one of the people that I could see at the side of the screen. And seriously, if the rest of you couldn't see Sue, she took notes throughout the session. And just watching Sue being focused and then writing and focused was so motivating, Sue. So the comment is in the chat. You should see it.
Yeah, thank you. That's because of my OU training.
Good on you.
Yeah.
I always take notes because it helps me listen. So I took notes during the session as well. Thank you.
That's really good. It's fantastic.
Cheers, Sue. Lots of other places to get help if you need it. Where are you based?
Flamborough.
Oh, Flamborough, great place. So Yorkshire SEAL Group.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent, great group.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, I love it. Love it.
Excellent. Glad to hear it. Martin, have you got anything, or Bex, or Laura, or Beck, or Rosie, or Di, or Em? Do you want to add anything and phone number? You can add something as well if you wish. If not, we'll disappear. Okay. All right then. Bye, Sarah. Thank you.
See you, lovely.
Cheers. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye, Dan.
Bye. Bye. Well done, Sarah.
Thank you.